The Nation of Islam emerged in the depths of black suffering in the United States. During an era marked by racial terror, economic exclusion, cultural erasure, and psychological degradation. To understand the contributions of the Nation of Islam, one must understand the conditions black people were living under when it appeared. The NOI did not arise as an abstract religious movement. It arose as a nation-building project, a response to the total failure of American society to recognize black humanity. The Nation of Islam traces its origin to Detroit, Michigan in 1930, with the appearance of Master Wallace Fard Muhammad. According to Nation of Islam primary doctrine, Fard Muhammad came to black people, then referred to as Negroes, to teach them their true identity, history, and divine origin, which had been systematically stripped away through slavery and colonial education. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad would later write in The Message to the Black Man in America, the so-called Negroes are the original people of the earth and the makers of civilization. This statement alone represented a radical psychological rupture. At a time when black people were taught through schools, churches, and media that they were inferior, cursed, or naturally criminal, the Nation of Islam declared the exact opposite, that black people were original, chosen, and divine. After Fard Muhammad's disappearance in 1934, Elijah Muhammad assumed leadership and became the chief architect of the Nation of Islam's theology, discipline, and program for black upliftment. One of the Nation of Islam's most significant contributions was psychological emancipation. Before civil rights legislation, before desegregation, before voting rights enforcement, the NOI addressed a deeper issue, the colonized black mind. In the Supreme Wisdom lessons, which were taught privately to members, black people were instructed that their oppression was not accidental nor a reflection of inferiority, but the result of deliberate historical processes. This framework gave black people clarity instead of confusion and dignity instead of shame. Malcolm X, in his speeches and later in the autobiography of Malcolm X, repeatedly testified to this transformation. The Nation of Islam taught me to stop hating myself and start loving myself. That shift from self-hatred to self-respect was revolutionary. The NOI taught black men and women to stand upright, speak deliberately, dress with dignity, and reject degrading images imposed by white supremacy. Another central contribution of the Nation of Islam was the moral and behavioral reform. At a time when black communities were being destabilized by unemployment, drugs, alcohol, gambling, and crime, conditions created by systematic exclusion, the NOI emphasized personal discipline as a form of resistance. Elijah Muhammad repeatedly taught, reform the individual and the family will be reformed. Reform the family and the nation will be reformed. Through strict codes of conduct, the NOI reduced crime, addiction, and domestic instability among its members. Former prisoners, drug dealers, and marginalized black men were transformed into disciplined, purposeful individuals. This is not anecdotal. Police departments across the country privately acknowledged that NOI members were among the least likely to reoffend. Perhaps the most tangible contribution of the Nation of Islam was its emphasis on economic independence. Long before black-owned businesses became a popular slogan, the NOI was actively building them. Under Elijah Muhammad, the nation established farms and agricultural operations, restaurants and bakeries, clothing factories, security services, newspapers, most notably, Muhammad Speaks. In The Message to the Black Man, Elijah Muhammad warned black people that integration without economic power would result in permanent dependency. We must unite ourselves and build businesses of our own. This emphasis on economic self-reliance inspired later black nationalist thinkers, including Dr. Claude Anderson, who echoed similar principles in Black Labor White Wealth, though the NOI articulated them decades earlier. The Nation of Islam placed extraordinary emphasis on family structure, which is viewed as the foundation of national strength. Through institutions like Muslims Girls Training and the Fruit of Islam, men and women were trained to assume responsibility for themselves, their families, and their communities. While critics often misunderstood these structures, primary NOI materials show their purpose was not subjugation, but nation building through role clarity and discipline, a model consistent with liberation movements worldwide during the 20th century. The Nation of Islam famously rejected participation in American electoral politics, arguing that black people lacked sufficient power to benefit from it. Elijah Muhammad stated plainly, "You don't join the politics of your oppressor." This position forced Black America to confront an uncomfortable truth. Legal inclusion does not equal power. While civil rights organizations focused on integration, the NOI focused on sovereignty, self-determination, and international consciousness. Malcolm X later expanded this idea by reframing Black Americans as colonized people, advocating for human rights rather than civil rights, a distinction he articulated clearly in his 1964 speeches. The influence of the Nation of Islam extended far beyond its membership. It reshaped Black political language, cultural expression, and international awareness. The rise of Black power, Afrocentric education, prison reform movements, and independent Black media all bear the imprint of NOI philosophy. Even critics of the nation have acknowledged that it did what America failed to do: restore pride, purpose, and discipline to millions of Black people who had been written off as disposable. The Nation of Islam must be understood on its own terms, not through caricatures or selective criticism, but through its primary teachings and lived impact. It was never merely a religious organization. It was a response to genocide, miseducation, and economic strangulation. In the words of Elijah Muhammad, "A nation can rise no higher than its women, and no stronger than its men." The Nation of Islam raised men who stood tall, women who knew their worth, and communities that believed in their future. Whether one agrees with every aspect of its theology or not, its contribution to the upliftment of Black people in America is undeniable and permanent. To all of the members and contributors of the Nation of Islam, we proudly stand on your shoulders. For more information, please visit my website at www.ontheshoulders1.com. There, you can support my OTSOG book series. You can also support me on Patreon at patreon.com/OTSOG. You can hit the super like button under this video. You can join this channel as a member, and you can also purchase yourself some merchandise. I love you all. Make sure you catch that next video coming up.